after a calm first half of the year, the market has gotten more volatile over the past few weeks. But with volatility comes opportunity, at least for traders. So with me is independent day trader Jeff Zananiri to give me your take on this market. So we had a big sell-off yesterday. We've seen some volatility, I feel like, since July came. How do you see the markets right now?
I think it's like Christmas just came yesterday. I mean, you know, investors are conditioned to be scared of volatility. It's like counterintuitive. People want to buy when the market's very calm and the stocks are just making nonstop all-time highs. But as soon as that narrative shifts is when you're supposed to get active, is when people are inactive, right? So people run away from volatility. But as a trader, you really have to like embrace volatility and just expect the unexpected in a way. Get comfortable in the fact that the next few months, particularly in this political season, are going to be some serious opportunities to swing trade. Yeah. And that's basically what I do.
So, I mean, it's interesting because we were so calm for the first half of the year. I mean, there was hardly any volatility at all. It was just up and up and up and record high and record high.
Right.
Do you feel like that sentiment has shifted now?
I think the regime change, that there's been a regime change in that. I think that we might get back to that, but I think at least for the rest of this year, I think you're going to have some serious moves up and down. What's a little bit interesting to me, though, was yesterday was the biggest down move that we've had in the S&P and the NASDAQ since 2022. Mm-hmm. And the volatility index, the VIX, didn't even go over 20.
Wow.
So it was kind of like a controlled selling in the NASDAQ yesterday, which was, you know, 3.7%. It's a monster move. That's a mega move. I mean, I've been trading since the late 90s, and I remember it was normal moves in like 99, 2000. But for this type of market, a 3% plus move in one day is huge. And it was orderly. It wasn't chaotic, which was...
It wasn't like panicky.
There was no panic yet.
Right.
But I think there could be panic, is what I'm trying to say.
Interesting. So we might be in for some panic situations this year.
Panic situations could arise. Yeah.
You mentioned the election, and we've got, looks like two very different candidates in terms of economic policy.
Right.
And what do you think? What are you looking for as a trader?
You know what's interesting is we had a shift that happened on an inflation number earlier this month on the 10th of July. CPI came out. Remember that?
I do.
And then NASDAQ had a big sell-off, and Russell 2000 saw a lot of institutional flows into it. But what was really interesting was after President Biden and former President Trump had their debate, that same trade continued in like a massive way. So huge flows out of the Magnificent Seven, out of big cap tech, and into small cap stocks. So I'm agnostic about the markets and politicians. We all have our emotions, we all have our favorites, there's no question about it. What I really try to do is remove those biases and think, okay, so what is the market telling me that it wants to do if such a thing happens? So I see a Trump victory, I see positive Trump news as bullish for small caps, bullish for IWM, stocks that have been kind of beaten down by inflation, beaten down by like, you know, money flowing to the big companies that are dominating the world. And I see a Kamala victory. Now, I can't even wrap my mind around that. This is the new discussion, right?
I know, it changes so quickly.
Because and I have to be honest, I don't really know what she's about yet. We have to see what she's about. But if she's like a continuation of Biden's policies, then that should be good for tech.
So you mentioned small caps.
Yeah.
Because they really didn't do anything for a long time, but they have had some inflows lately. So you think that's where the opportunity is?
It was like there was the widest, we came into July with the widest underperformance between the Russell and the NASDAQ over a 12-month period.
I believe it.
Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And then in the last 3 weeks, we had a 20% reversal in that pair. So NASDAQ went down almost 10% in that time. Well, the Russell went up almost 10%. So when you see like this almost exact matching of performance, it's obvious that a big pair trade is being put on by Wall Street, hedge funds, et cetera.
And there's a lot of geopolitical things to watch too.
Oh
There's not enough.
Yeah,
so we've got Taiwan. There was, the semiconductor. I think no matter who's elected president, the chip industry is going to be impacted. It's so political. Is that something you're watching as well?
I mean, that's the center of all the action, right? NVIDIA's the star stock. It's still up over 100% this year. So people were acting like this is now going to be like a Warren Buffett value play. It's by no means a value play yet, right? So this is a stock that's gone up fivefold in the last 24 months for good reason. They've seen their chips get huge demand because they have the best AI chips on the planet. They have a huge head start, right? But I think that if people get really sour on them, there's still a lot of downside. I think in the long run, stock should be a lot higher, but you got to trade that stock with like respect for the market, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
You got to have respect for the price action.
Well, for sure. And I mean, I've been around the markets, for a couple of decades.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen things look perfect.
Right.
And then something comes out of nowhere and falls out. So you got to be ready. Even in NVIDIA can be a victim of
You
that.
have to really just like embrace the fact that we don't know what next Friday is going to look like. So if I'm going to sit here with you, Jane, and I'm going to say, I will tell you what December 2024 is exactly going to be like, it's like predicting the weather 6 months from now, right? There's so many, I mean, like President Trump was like a millisecond away from losing his, life.
Sure.
And so how do we know?
Right.
These things can change the whole planet on a dime, right? So you have to respect the volatility. And I don't think the volatility in the world is really being fully priced into the markets yet, so to speak. We'll see.
Okay. And what about a Trump presidency? What sectors would that be good for?
Be good for energy straight away.
Fossil fuels.
Fossil fuels. So a couple of stocks I like are Western. It's a natural gas processing company, ticker symbol WES, and there's huge momentum for the natural gas export industry if Trump wins to be deregulated, so they'll be able to ship natural gas overseas a lot easier. I like Diamondback Energy, FANG, huge exploration company in Texas, so a lot of deregulation in drilling and things like this. So that's an obvious trade. The less obvious trade is the small cap trade, which I think has got huge legs because it's just been such an underloved sector. Like Main Street USA has really taken a beating the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And there's opportunity. There's great companies,
Yeah. And how do you do your research? How do you find these companies?
I have a Bloomberg that I spend a lot of money on.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but I've always done my own research. Even even when I was a professional hedge fund trader and trading on the buy side and trading, back to I started at Bear Stearns in the late 90s. So I used to go to these analyst meetings, and even then, like I was 22, 23 years old, I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, this guy's telling me this, but like I have to think for myself on this. So I have to tell my clients, I have to explain to my clients why they're thinking this, why why their targets are that. So I think the one takeaway I would give everyone is do your own homework. Like don't there's no cheat code to this game.
Yeah. Okay, Jeff, thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, Jane.
Thanks.
All right.